Six o'clock, I'm going to call this meeting to order. Welcome some of our guests today. We have Tony Fleming, Dr. Lee, Tim Bennett, and Marilyn and Maggie back there. So welcome back. Next on the agenda is approval of the agenda. Motion reads that the council meeting of April 3rd, 2023 be approved as presented. Can I get a mover and a seconder, please? Councillor McConnell, Councillor Lockett. Any discussion on the agenda? Seeing none, call the question. All in favor? Perfect, thank you. Number 3 is declaration of interest. Is there any declarations of interest? Good, seeing none, that's great. So we have 2 presentations tonight. The first one is 4.1 is Dr. Lee from the Leeds Grenville Lanark District Health Unit. Welcome, Dr. Lee. You can have the podium.
Hi, everyone. So my name is Lena. I am the relatively new, I've been thinking about this, how often you call yourself new, right? I'm a relatively new medical officer of health and CEO of the health unit. I started in September, and so now I think I've been 7 months now here at this position. And it's been really lovely, and I've been learning lots, getting to know the community, getting to know the work of the health unit, and also getting to know what I can do in my role here, and making some plans. I wanted to come here today as part of a tour of all the municipalities in the region. And so our health unit services the Leeds, Grenville, and Lanark region. So it's been and I've been going to each of the municipalities just to say hi, so that we can put some faces to names, and also just let everyone know a little bit about myself, some of the work that health unit does in broad terms with municipalities, and to express my interest in continuing that work. So about me, I started here at the health unit recently, but I had been here at the health unit before, actually. I was here during my residency, which I did at Queen's, and I did some of that residency with my predecessor, who was Paula Stewart, who many of you I'm sure knew very well, and who was very active in the community. And so I really enjoyed my time here, and when she said she was retiring, I thought, oh, that's a wonderful opportunity. I would love to go back and still do that. Before I was here, I was at Toronto Public Health over the course of much of the pandemic, and before that I was at Great Bruce Health Unit, which the large urban center there is Owen Sound. So really for me, the smaller health unit, the place where you can get to know municipalities and community members is what I was looking for. So this is really in terms of the work of the health unit, there's a few things I want to mention. One is, as we all know, the emergency phase of the pandemic has passed. There does remain pandemic response work that the health unit is doing, but as well, we're doing a lot of that recovery work. So what does it look like now to be our energy away from the sort of urgency of pandemic response and folding it more into our usual response, and then also ramping up some of the things that we might not have been able to do as much over the past 2 to 3 years. And so that's been is thinking about what is the health of our community and what are the needs of the community now, which are different now than it was before the pandemic. And then also, what work do we need to resume Some of you may know that a lot of our work is mandated by the province, and so there's requirements and expectations of the province. That's for us and for which we report, but there is also quite a bit of flexibility in how health units actually deliver that. And so what we're looking at down the road, two elements that I want everyone to know about. One is we are resuming the municipal calls that we were doing during the pandemic with a slightly different focus. So previously they were about once a week. Now they'll be about once a month and less about the pandemic and more about the usual work of the health unit. And the other is that we are looking at a strategic plan process over the course of 2023. And so we will for feedback from partners, including this to you all the spring / summer, that's for feedback. And the last piece that I did want to mention is that we do have a number of board members, majority that are from municipalities, which we draw from municipalities. So we have 9 board members, and as I think most of you know, Ruth is one of our board members. And that has started, of our 9 board members, 7 are municipally elected, and the work of the health unit is really intimately related to the work of municipalities through that mechanism, as well as through our, I think, common cause in looking at and improving the health and well-being of the communities that we serve. And so I'll maybe leave it at that. If anyone has any questions or comments, but overall, just wanted to say hi. It's nice to meet everyone, and I'm sure we'll see each other around.
Does anyone have any questions for Dr. Lee? Well, thank you for coming. Looks like everyone is enthralled by you. So, no, we're good. It's nice for you to come and take the time to come meet us. I know Ruth has had the good fortune to meet you already, but yeah, we look forward to working together in the future. Thank you. You can stay if you want, or okay. I think if I gave that opportunity to anyone else, they would come.
I think it has a lot to do with the work of health. So the more I know about it.
So 4.2 is a presentation from our Municipal Property Assessment Corporation account manager, Kim Bennett. And Kim, you're ready, eh?
Thank you, I'm ready. Here we go.
It's all yours.
Yeah. I won't be that quick, but about 10 minutes, so don't worry. So my name is Kim Bennett, and I'm your local account manager. So I manage the stakeholders in the Lanark, Leeds, and Grenville region as well. So I'd like to first take a minute to congratulate you all on your elections. I know you have been that recent, but the presentation today is really an overview of MPAC and property assessment in Ontario, and it serves as a refresher for those of you who are seasoned elected officials, or it'll be a good introduction for those of you that are new to the municipal world. So again, today's presentation is high level. If there's anything that more questions that you guys have after the presentation, we can set up a further delegation, or I can get you more information through Matthew or through Casey as well. Next slide, please, Casey. So at MPAC, we're Ontario's property experts. Our job is to assess and classify more than 5.5 million properties across Ontario worth a combined value of $3 trillion. Just in the past year, Ontario has grown by approximately 45,000 new residential homes. And in 2022, we added more than $37 billion to Ontario's assessment rolls. Every municipality uses our assessments to make informed decisions about their community, including the distribution of property taxes. Ontario's property tax system and these assessments generate approximately $30 billion in tax revenue annually. Next slide, please. Thank you. There are 4 key players in Ontario's property assessment and taxation system, and all have a different role and interest in this process. The provincial government, specifically the Ministry of Finance, is responsible for setting assessment and taxation legislation, as well as policies. They also determine the education property tax rates. There's also an independent body that adjudicates appeals of MPAC's assessed values, and that is the ARB, or the Assessment Review Board. This also falls under the jurisdiction of the province. MPAC is an independent, not-for-profit corporation funded by all Ontario municipalities, and our role is to accurately assess and classify all properties in Ontario. We do this in compliance with the Assessment Act and regulations set by the Government of Ontario. Municipalities set their budget requirements, set tax rates, and collect property taxes to pay for municipal services such as police, fire, roads, recreation, and water, among many other things. Municipalities use MPAC assessments and the established tax rates to distribute their tax requirements to ratepayers. And finally, the property owner. The property owners pay the property tax bill and help set market value through ongoing property purchases and sales. As you can imagine, maintaining Ontario's property database is very important. Property data is continuously updated so that municipal records are accurate when our municipal stakeholders are making important tax decisions. Maintaining Ontario's database includes assessing new construction, additions, and renovations promptly, responding to property owner inquiries, and working to help them understand their assessments, supporting municipalities. And we support municipalities in a number of different ways. Just some to name a few would be offering Municipal Connect, which is our software system in which our municipal stakeholders can obtain the primary source of assessment-related information and data. We also work collaboratively on projects that are important to municipalities, like digital permitting. We have important statutory duties such as handling requests for reconsiderations, which we'll get into a little further in the presentation, and maintaining people data by tracking school support for over 5.5 million properties. Monitoring market and assessing newly built and renovated properties are things that we do every day and every year to keep property data current. We also periodically update every single property assessment in Ontario based on the same legislated valuation date, and we call that an assessment update or a reassessment. The valuation date for the most recent reassessment was January 1st, 2016. That is when we determined what every single property in Ontario could have reasonably sold for in its current state and condition at a particular point in time. Regular revaluation of properties ensures that assessments stay up to date and similar properties of similar values in the same municipality are paying similar property taxes. Provincial legislation determines when MPAC conducts each province-wide assessment and sets the valuation date for each cycle. Ontario's property tax system is based on everyone paying their portion of what it costs to deliver community services. And to do this, all properties are assigned a value at a common valuation date as noted in the prior slide. That principle is called current valuation assessment, or CVA. This is the price that a property might reasonably be expected to sell for if sold by a willing seller to a willing buyer on an open market with appropriate time and exposure on the market. Just to reiterate, while MPAC awaits news from the provincial government about the next province-wide assessment update, January 1st, 2016 continues to be Ontario's legislated valuation date. As noted earlier, that's a fixed date to which all properties are valued. Although the assessment update remains paused, our work continues to keep property data up to date. Property owners will still receive an updated property assessment notice from MPAC if there have been any changes to their properties. Just this past November, MPAC sent out over 800,000 property assessment notices to reflect changes to properties across the province. Once the province announces when the next assessment update will take place and what that valuation date will be, we'll let you know and can work to have meaningful conversations at that time to look at the values that will be coming through that assessment update. This slide shows what happens when there is an assessment update. So it shows the link between the chosen valuation date, the mailing of the property assessment notice, and the phase-in, which is bringing the new assessed value of a property into effect over a period commonly. The phase-in program was introduced by the province to provide an additional level of property tax stability and predictability. When properties experience a market increase in assessed values between assessment updates, that increase is phased in gradually over a period of 4 years, as you can see on the slide. Any assessment decreases would happen in the first year of the cycle. When we're looking at valuing properties, There are three industry-wide standardized approaches to valuing properties. First would be the direct comparison approach, and that approach is the one that we most commonly see for residential properties and for condominiums. And it uses recent sales of properties, which are also analyzed to provide an indication of value. Next is the income approach, and that's an income-producing property's ability to earn revenue and how that's directly tied to its current value. So to value those properties, we need to determine how much revenue it could generate for the sale price. So to clarify, it's not the revenue that is being generated by the occupant, but rather the rent that the occupant is paying to the owner of the building that drives that value. Lastly is the cost approach. And this approach is used when a property type is unique and rarely sold on the open market, as we cannot rely on either the direct comparison approach or the income approach to determine its value due to lack of data. The approach is commonly used for general purpose industrial properties, small retail properties, gravel pits, and marinas, to name a few. Now we'll look at MPAC's role in the building permit process. So our role in the building permit process is to take permits that we receive from municipalities and turn them into assessments. So our municipal stakeholders rely on MPAC assessments to levy their property taxes, as we know. The sooner that MPAC can deliver those assessments, the sooner our municipal stakeholders can realize that new revenue. Every year, we process on average 300,000 building permits for new developments or renovations in the province. We're the only organization with a data set of all building permits in Ontario, and our understanding of that data gives us a unique perspective on ways to modernize its collection and its exchange to support our municipal partners. So once we've reviewed a building permit and we've added on new assessment, we provide what's called a property assessment notice to property owners. Sometimes property owners will not agree with those assessments. So here's how we resolve our assessment concerns. So if the property owner contacts the municipality or if they contact us, we always ask them 4 questions. So 1, if they could have sold their property on January 1st, 2016 for their assessed value. 2, if they visited About My Property, which is the software that we use for property owners, they can log in and see all of the data that MPAC has about their property. And if they've reviewed that information to confirm that what MPAC has on file is correct. If they've used About My Property to conduct a comparable research on assessment values in their area of comparable properties. And 4, if they still disagree with their assessment, they have the option to file a request for reconsideration free of charge. And there's also an ability to file an appeal with the Assessment Review Board once the request for reconsideration process has commenced. Next, let's talk property taxes. So assessments distribute taxes, they don't determine the taxes paid. The most important factor is not how much the assessed value of a property has changed, but rather how the assessed value has changed relative to the average change in their class in their community. This concept is explained in a recent MPAC toolkit, which was shared with your municipality, and I'll discuss the toolkit in the next slide. So this is a snippet of the new MPAC toolkit. So in anticipation of the next province-wide assessment, we've implemented a strategy to address misconceptions of the relationships between assessed values and taxation, including resources for municipalities that will ensure that when an announcement is made, we're ready to support property owners and to support our municipalities. This digital toolkit is available on mpac.ca, and it helps municipalities, including elected officials, to mitigate misinformation and provide support and resources in educating and informing property owners. So I can circulate that link if you guys would like to Lindsay, and then you guys can check it out. There's a really great video on there. It's about 2 minutes long, and it's called How Your Property Taxes Are Calculated Based on the Assessed Value of Your Home. A lot of municipalities are opting to put that on their website, right on their tax page, just so that property owners can understand that in advance of the next provincial assessment update as well. So as a reminder, and as shown on the myth versus fact infographic here, an increase in a home's assessed value doesn't necessarily equate to an increase in their taxes. If the municipality's operating budget doesn't change, but the assessment-based doubles, then essentially the tax rate would decrease and it would change the taxes for each individual property. Lastly, Thank you for having me tonight. The last thing that I will leave you with is, if you haven't already, please subscribe to our monthly municipal e-newsletter, which is called In Touch, which can be done through impact.ca, or you can reach out to me and I can sign you up for that directly. And if I could use this time to plug that photo up for our municipal newsletter. We're here when I was here very early. We're going to be featuring council meetings in our next issue of In Touch, so I was hoping to get a photo with Prescott Town Council to include in that newsletter.
Sure.
Okay. Nobody can answer questions. That's okay.
Twice in one day.
Well, I just thought I could see.
Oh, wait.
Let's take a cup.
Thank you.
What's running in the
So again, that's going to be in our April In Touch newsletter that will be sent out. And the very last slide is my contact information and our regional manager's contact information as well, if there's ever any questions. But I'm happy to answer any questions on tonight's presentation if there are any.
Thank you, Kim. Does anyone have any questions for Kim? Go ahead.
The link is on the link that you were referring to, is that on your Facebook page or something?
We share some of the data out on our Facebook page as well, but it's right on impact.ca, and there's a section on there called Support for Municipalities. And then one of those sub pages there would be yeah, so there's a lot of stuff on there that can be shared through your social media. So there's infographics that a lot of municipalities and MPAC are using on LinkedIn and on Twitter and things like that. And then there's also videos that can be posted to social media as well.
Councillor Campbell?
Is there a limit to comparable properties that you can research?
There is, and I don't know the exact number offhand, so I can get that to you through Lindsay, just for confirmation.
Anyone else have a question? I do have a question, Kim. When do you think, we're going on 2016 now, when do you think you're going to update that?
That's a really great question that I don't know the answer to. Yeah, to be totally honest, we don't have any indication of when we're going to hear. So what we've done is we've continued to stay in a state of readiness, because we don't anticipate we're going to be given as much time as we typically are to produce a reassessment. So we're just keeping the data as current as we can so that we're ready to flip the switch when the province tells us.
I think I've seen that slide you had on earlier with the myth versus reality. I've seen that in your social media.
Yes.
And I think that is a huge misconception. There's a lot of residents that are quite worried about that. My only worry about that is that we're going to have to check every property one by one, almost, right?
Well, so the benefit to the amount of sales that we've had over the last couple of years, like I don't know that we've ever seen that many sales in our region. So we've got a lot more data to work with this time. And again, we've been afforded a lot more time to review that data this time versus what we would currently typically be allowed. So we've got a lot more data. We've had a lot more time to be able to review that data and all of those sales that we've had as well.
Right. And I mean, if a lot of those sales were at the high point of the value of those homes, you know, are you going to assess the value at that, even though it's starting to come back down a little?
It depends. We don't know what the legislative valuation date will be either. So that makes it a really tricky question to answer as well. So we don't know whether the government is going to choose a valuation date that was during that peak, or whether they're waiting for it to cool, and then we'll choose a valuation date that perhaps hasn't occurred yet. So that's why I say, you know, as soon as we have a valuation date and we know when the next assessment update will be, we'll reach out to Matthew and to Lindsay, and we'll set up another presentation delegation so we can kind of talk the trends that we're seeing. before the assessment update actually happens. So it's usually a few months before we actually complete our assessment update that we offer to come out, talk to municipalities, so that we can relay to you guys in advance what we're seeing.
Great. Okay. Anyone else? Thank you very much for coming.
Thank you so much, you guys.
You have to stay because Dr. Lee's staying.
I was just gonna say.
Don't feel bad. 5 is delegations. There are no delegations tonight. 6 is minutes of the previous council meeting. So 6.1, approval of the council minutes. Motion is the council minutes dated March 20th, 2023. Be accepted as presented. Can I get a mover and a seconder, please? Councillor Burton and Councillor Young. Any discussion on those minutes? Seeing none, I call the question. All in favor? Great, carried. Thank you. 7 is communications and petitions. There are no items under that today. Consent reports, we have 3 of them. 8.1 is the information package. 8.2 is the 2023 water wastewater budget, and 8.3 is staff report 22-2023, the projects report. Does anyone like to remove an item out of the consent agenda or discuss an item? Councillor Campbell, then Councillor Young.
Yeah, in the package, there was a media release from the United Counties of Leeds and Grenville about climate change action plan. And I'm just asking the question, is Prescott involved at all? They've got a council to adopt climate change action plan. They've got a regional working group that's gonna come up to consider opportunities for area municipalities to advance climate change initiatives. There's going to be an implementation of the Partners for Climate Protection, which is a network of over 510 Canadian municipalities. We're going to explore grant and incentive opportunities that encourage sustainable practices. So I'm hoping that Prescott will be somehow involved in this. And I guess the question goes to.
Pose a question to Mr. Armstrong.
Thank you very much, and through you, Mr. Mayor. So to date, we haven't been involved, but we're more than happy to get a little bit more information in terms of the municipalities they're looking to involve. Sometimes they include the single tiers, sometimes they don't, of which we're a single tier. And so we'll bring back that additional information in to the next meeting and just see how that we can be involved in that.
Does that help? No. Good. Thank you, Matthew. Councillor Young.
Thank you, Mayor Shankar. 7 to 10, they were all about the accuracy of the voters list. I'd like to.
And either all of them or just one?
They all supported the same resolution.
Okay. So we'll pull one of those then. Anyone else? Okay, so do this every week. So by removing that one, can we have it amended?
If council's direction is only to bring that back to the next meeting to discuss the resolution of support, we can do that as direction. We can amend the motion that it be removed. But if we've already discussed it now in this moment, for efficiency purposes, we can just move the motion to accept the items on the consent.
3? Okay. So the motion is that we'll accept all the items under the consent report. Can I get a mover and a seconder, please? Councillor Kirkby and Councillor Campbell, thank you. Any discussion? In favor? Thank you. Okay, 9 is committee reports. There's no items under committee reports. That is mayor. Busy last couple of weeks. I know we have a busy week this week. We did Dragon Garden's 40th anniversary today. Tomorrow is joint services. Wednesday, there's family health team's having a Wellness Day at the Legion. I think, not you, I know, sorry. I pointed at you that I pulled it away. Thursday is a grand opening of Fat Les's at the golf club. So it's a busy next couple of weeks for all of us. I'm going to move on to 11 is outside boards. And we have 2 or 3 counselors on here, starting with Councillor Kirkby. If you want to talk to the wastewater meeting we have.
Sure. Through you, Mayor Shankar. The meeting was last Thursday, March 30th. Was my first meeting on the wastewater board, but listening to both townships speak, the town of Prescott and Edwardsburg Cardinal. A couple things that I noted is that it seems well run. Right, the callbacks had actually was budgeted originally for 10,000. I think they were under 7,000, so that number went to 7,000. There's been not a very big increase in breakdowns. It seems like the staff that's running it is doing a good job. And I think we meet again in December. The one thing I noted was that I wasn't aware of is there's an extra bed there. I think it was Councillor McConnell maybe that pointed that out, but there was an extra bed there that could be tapped into if there was a growth in population. So that was information that was well shared. So that's all I have. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I think I remember that extra bed, but if I remember the comment was for $3 million, we could. No?
That is correct. I think the expense of one to be dug though, compared to being there, was quite so different.
Only $3 million. Yeah, no, that was a good meeting, and I think we're going to meet September and December. We're adding one extra meeting, just for I think budget. But it was a good meeting, and I know Edwardsburg Cardinals Mayor Tory Deschamps was quite positive and quite thankful of our committee for not passing the budget without him. So it was a nice show of respect on both of our parts. So that was good. Councillor McConnell, do you have anything to add to that board and the cemetery board?
The only thing I'd add, I think it's been pretty well covered so far, Mayor Shankar, is the extra bid, so to speak, that I commented for the benefit of the new people on the board that wouldn't be aware of this, but when we get to 85% of the capacity of our plant, because you have to expand. And Matthew mentioned that when our plant was designed, it was designed to have another bed that could be added, and the expense of doing that would be a hell of a lot less than a full expansion of the full plant. So that's where I think, honestly, I don't remember the $3 million figure. I must have slept through that part, but that would be way less than a complete huge expansion and much quicker. And actually, I was thinking of it after, that might be something that we would consider looking for financing to do anyway, because we do have some structural problems with the beds that we have now. And if we had a new one that was in tip-top shape, then we could, if we didn't need one of the other two, switch it over and do repairs or replacement on the other. So it might be something we should give some thought to down the road, just field for grants, that type of thing. I know our staff has been very diligent in getting grants for us for water related things in the past, so something to consider.
Absolutely.
As far as the cemetery board goes, I mentioned last time we were looking for one more person to take on the chair. Ray Young has apparently had his, I was going to say volunteered, but Matthew twisted his arm, he told me, so
Volunteer.
Ray is going to chair the board. We do have our first burial coming up in a few weeks' time. And within the next couple of weeks, we'll be going through the cemetery to see what damage has been done, if any, and what cleanup is required for the spring. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councilor McConnell. Just back to that wastewater meeting. Matthew, I know there was 4 of us in attendance, 4 council members, so that means there was 3 missing. So just, not missing, but that aren't part of that committee. So just as we talk about it, Matthew, can you just tell all of council and those that are watching what capacity we're at now and what that extra bed would do to our capacity?
Certainly. So thank you very much, Mr. Mayor, and through you. So our wastewater treatment plant is rated for a capacity of 4,726 cubic meters per day. Currently, we're running anywhere in the 3,500 to 3,900 on a yearly basis. So somewhere in the neighborhood of 70 to 80%. So in the years of 2017 and 2019, those were definitely high years in particular, because you'll note that they also coincided with the flooding years where we had a lot of rain. We have a lot of combined water or sanitary and storm sewers in town. And consequently, when it rains, not only do we get the sanitary that's coming through, but because we have some of those combined, then we get a lot of water infiltration in rainy events. And so those, when we have a lot of rain, that's what tends to inundate the system, and that is what can cause overflows and things like that. That being said, summer, when we have not a lot of rain, we run at 50% or even below on a daily average capacity. So in terms of when it was constructed with 3 beds, and then it was planned for a 4th one in the future. And so that way, if you do happen to hit that 85%, and right now we're not there yet, but if we were add to a couple more developments, then it's quite possible that we would be there. You can add a 4th bed. It is kind of in that $3 million range is the estimate, and then it would increase the plant by 1/3 more. So now you're closer, a little above 6,000 cubic meters per day. And so that's really how it's currently constructed and how we can move forward. Councillor McConnell was mentioning about the condition of the concrete. So when it was originally built, unfortunately, there was freezing of the concrete that occurred during the building, and it compromised the first 3 beds that are currently there. That we work with our insurance company, and we have yearly inspections of each of those beds to make sure that they're not deteriorating, and they actually inject urethane into the concrete to keep it stable and whatnot. So far, that's continuing to work. We haven't had any major issues, and we continue to monitor it as per our insurance and whatnot. So that's kind of the risk mitigation that we've put in place, and it seems to be working well so far. But if we were to add a 4th one and not require the full capacity of the plant, then it would give us an opportunity to drain one of the other beds, completely remediate it, and then bring it back online. And you could do that in cycles over a couple of years. So there are some advantages to moving those forward. And really, as we look for new developments, both in the town of Prescott, beyond our borders in Augusta, as well as at Wurzburg Cardinal, when we continue to add, inflow to the plant, then that provides us the opportunity to be able to start to invest in it as well. So that's just a little bit of a history lesson and a little bit about capacity.
That's good. Thank you. You're good? That's good? Okay.
Yeah, I think I'd just throw in that we have development charges too, which people may not know of. And the development charges go to build additional things like this that are required because of the development, so that the people who are here right now and are quite happily using what we have aren't stuck with the extra cost. So development charges for new construction is something that a lot of contractors are not very happy about kicking in, but I think we find that it's essential to keep our system upgraded and expanded. We use some in building the new fire hall, for example, the market.
Thank you. Councillor Young, so I have you for the South Granville Chamber of Commerce and the mayor's, Augusta's Mayor's Breakfast.
So at the South Granville Chamber of Commerce, Councillor Burton was also there. Their theme was It's a New Day, really enthusiastic group, elected new directors. Katie Nolan was the keynote speaker. And they're just really looking to grow the chamber and their connections. A fact that I did not know, the Prescott Board of Trade originated in 1893. So they've been around a long time. So that was interesting. I didn't know. For the mayor's breakfast, there were also, Mayor Shankar was there, Councillor Lockup was there, Councillor Burton was there. So it was really, really good. Good news about millions of dollars of investment, lots of jobs. So I'm sure we'll see the spill off of that as well here in Prescott. Sue Ling Ching, CEO of the Ottawa Board of Trade, spoke, and I guess her biggest message was what she called radical collaboration, just saying that we should all collaborate as a municipality, as a region, and as a province. So it was really good.
Great.
All good news.
Yeah, that was very exciting news. I mean, Mayor Shaver mentioned 100 jobs and I think over $100 million in money coming into the area. So just fantastic with up to 300 jobs. So, their benefit is our benefit, right? I was very happy to see that for them and I congratulate them on that. Okay. That's it. Does anyone else have anything they'd like that? No. 12 is staff report 23-2023, Riverwalk Creative Center Partnership. Okay, Matthew, you got this?
Okay. So following the presentation at the last council meeting, we had an opportunity to meet with the two presenters who are here today. Got into the details a little bit more in terms of what the overall vision was. And I think what for us is it became apparent that it would be a multi-use artistic space. But then we started going through some of the facilities and one that popped up, which is currently not used for anything more than storage, is the old pump house. And so it's that white portion of the water treatment plant that runs up, I believe that's Faya, down there along the roadway. And it's been used for storage for a number of years. It's very kind of picturesque inside the building itself. You can see the timbers on the roof, that sort of thing. Does require considerable work to bring it up to a standard, but would provide the space necessary. The northern portion of it is about 1,500 square feet in varying levels of the floor. And then the southern portion, which is kind of a separated area, is about 700 square feet. So 2,200 square feet in total. So really what we did is provided the information from the application that was submitted, as well as taking an analysis of, is there a possible venue? And we have identified one. We also talked about how it links to our strategic plan from the town, the economic strategic plan, as well as the recreation strategic plan. So listed some of those financial implications, obviously looking at providing the pump house at little to no cost, but the return on that would be that the not-for-profit group in partnership with the town would be looking for grants and fundraising to be able to fit it up to be able to make it a usable space. So really that's kind of what we were able to generate since our last meeting in terms of options of whether it could be feasible or not, and then what would that look like. So really that was the basis of the report and as well as the recommendations. Thank you.
Thank you, Matthew. Questions for Matthew from the council? Starting with Councilor.
So while I'm all in favor of new projects, I'm just I'm just cautious about whether we're starting something. And whether we're starting a cost to the town that we can't keep up. And I guess the other part of the question is, when would we know that the pottery equipment is even coming from St. Lawrence College?
Okay. So my most recent information in terms of the time that they're currently evaluating the applications, and as soon as they know, then they'll reach out to the various proponents. My guess is it's going to be sometime in the next couple of weeks, would be what they're looking for. In terms of taking on something that wouldn't be sustainable, obviously that's one of the first and foremost concerns when we talk about this from a staff perspective, and being able to say, what are our keys to success? And so I think there's a number of milestones that we would have to meet as we were generating the partnership and going through each of those steps before we said, okay, this is a 100% operational. So, do we have the funding in place to be able to make the changes needed to the pump house? Once we reach that milestone, okay, now we're over that. Now have we been able to secure operational funding and, those types of things. So I think this is the beginning of the journey as opposed to the end of the journey to say that, yes, we're 100% on going forward, but this is how do we identify those milestones and how do we reach each of those milestones as we move forward to be able to say that, yes, ultimately we want this to be a sustainable type of activity and facility, not something that we would then have to adorn from a town perspective and then add to the taxpayer base.
Thank you. Anyone else? Councillor Campbell?
Unsure of the term partnership. From what I've read, it appears that the town is a bit heavier on what is required in terms of making the building possible. I'm just unsure of the partnership, because to me, it sounds like it's a private enterprise coming in. I'm not sure if it's gonna be a program of the towns, or if these ladies are running the business. Are they taking profit? I know it's not for profit, but I'm not sure if they're gonna work for free or not. So are they taking funds for that to pay themselves? Has there been any market research done as to if people come and do pottery in Prescott? Any kind of market research? It just seems, if you could describe what the partnership is.
So I think from the town, or from my perspective, I'll just say from my perspective. So do we have space that could be used for it? Yes, I think we've identified a spot that could be appropriately used for it. And then we would work with the nonprofit organization to work towards, lending our support for grant applications, for being able to ensure that they're securing the necessary funding. Do they have a model that will be sustainable in terms of the costs? So really, from my perspective, the partnership side is providing the space at little to no cost. And so that immediately changes their cost model when it comes to moving forward. So really now you're talking about, variable costs, such as electricity, those types of things, as well as cost of actual operating the facility itself. So that's where we kind of come in from a partnership standpoint, that we wouldn't be charging market rate to that facility.
More?
Sorry. So the electricity, because they're gonna be running these kilns, and I don't know how much electricity that takes, but is that their cost or is that town's?
So that's where I would say that becomes the facility cost, and therefore they should be operating to be able to offset those types of things. If we're not charging rent, that sort of thing, then at the end of the day, we don't necessarily want to warrant a whole bunch of extra costs that we're not currently incurring.
And then insurance.
Yep, all of those things I think would have to be part of whatever partnership agreement that we would go down. We already have insurance on that building, obviously, because it's part and parcel of the water treatment plant. And then, from there, what does the contents look like, who's covering liability, all of those types of things. I can't necessarily answer every question today as to what that partnership would look like, but from my perspective, they would be responsible for operational day-to-day costs, programming, that sort of thing, and then we're responsible for providing the venue.
One more thing. I think it's a great idea. However, I just wonder if we're setting a precedent for any business that wants to come in and wants a building. I think of the quilters, they just have upgraded and moved into a new place. And what if it was them coming and saying, well, we'd like to have a building? I just worry about setting a precedent.
Thank you, Councillor Campbell. We got Councillor Burton, then Councillor McConnell.
Thank you, Mayor Shankar. I did a little bit of research through your report, Matthew, with the Cedar Ridge Creative Center in Scarborough. It's a very active center. Pottery and woodworking, scrapbooking and drawing and stained glass and painting and all this. It's a very active center, but their population is, 62,000 minimum, right? So I really like this idea, bringing this to our town. But I think we need to go down a different road. Is there a place in the high school? Is there a classroom that's not being used that we can, that the pottery people can go in there? I mean, there's different avenues. You say prepare a preliminary estimate. Well, that's a cost to us, correct? It's a cost to us. So I think at this point, we're putting the cart before the horse, per se. There's a lot of unanswered questions. And I think maybe there's other options out there. That's all. Thank you.
Councillor McConnell.
Thank you, Mayor Shankar. Unfortunately, time is of the essence in this particular case because, as Matthew said, they're going to make a decision on the equipment in the next couple of weeks. And I'd really like to give these ladies an A for effort for finding out about this, attempting to do something about it. But I'm reminded of several times that I ran for election and then we had the all candidates meetings. Unfortunately, we didn't have one this year, but a question was always asked by somebody at those meetings, what are you going to do for the downtown? To me, this is a business. It's a business that the town has no business being part of. I think Mary made an excellent comparison because I've done it before with the quilting store. Paper equipment they've bought, either rented or bought that condo over at Prescott Place. They're paying their bills, they're paying themselves. As far as setting a precedent goes, yes, this would be setting a very big precedent for anyone wanting to go into business to try and get the town to be a part of that business. And I don't fault you for doing it because it's a real good idea if we agree with it for you. But I don't think the town should be in the business of partnering with private business. I would love to see this in one of those big stores down the street. I've been places where they have had a pottery in the back and a retail store in the front. There's one in Brockville on the main street next to, used to be Souter's Barber Shop there. I go in anytime I've gone by, I've bought a couple pieces in there. You can talk to the people that are doing the stuff. To me, that is where this belongs. It belongs in a big store on the main street. If it's going to be a business that is viable, and it would be a good attraction in a business on the main street. If it's not viable as a business, Then Leanne mentioned the high school, I believe, which, when I went there, they had the shops on the back football field end of it there, and I don't know whether any of those are still operational or not, but certainly the space adequate. It's not on the main street, but it still does provide an option. I'm afraid I can't support this. Thank you.
Anyone else who hasn't, Councillor Young?
I guess I looked at it a little bit differently. I looked at it as creativity coming to the town. And there's all kinds of benefits for creativity to the town, both economically, with tourism, with everything else. I kind of at first saw it more with Walker House actually than maybe the high school. But the other thing I thought of is I didn't look at it as just pottery. I looked at it as all kinds of arts and not restricting it just to pottery. And just, I looked too at the history of when the town was asked what they wanted to see. And some of it was arts and relaxation, like some way to relax. And it's another avenue that's not sports. It's different from sports. So maybe that opens up a whole new avenue. And even like I even thought of Merrickville. I mean, they kind of started out that way and look at them today. So I kind of look at it as an opportunity. Maybe it's early in the game, but that's kind of how I saw it.
Thank you, Councillor Young. Councillor Kirkby?
Might as well add my piece, everybody else has. I really like the idea of the pump house being used and some work being done to it. I think that, you know, that's a venue. It's got some historic value to it. The one thing that sits for me is going back to the first presentation that the ladies made, was that the pottery equipment is not like portable. It's something that, you know, it takes infrastructure that needs to be put in place, you know, and so to me, it sounds like if you put it in place, there's quite a bit of work, and then there's quite a bit of work on the other side if it didn't work, right? To take it out, you know what I mean? So in that respect, you know, it's a hard one for me. I love the idea of having an art center, a mixed art center. I've had a friend that ran an art painting gallery, right? It's currently not open. My best friend's mom, she did ceramic for years in North Augusta and pottery. And she's been out of it for about 15 years. So at one time, you know, there was a big group, but it just doesn't seem to be the group. When I look online, I didn't see as much. I did check out Cedar Ridge also. And like you say, it's a big population. I would have expected a lot more feedback on the website and reviews and stuff like that. And, you know, it's the day of social media. And then when there's, you know, when there's several posts made and the average is about 3 to 6 likes, under responses of that. So I love the idea of doing something down there. If the pottery was portable, it'd be great. But at its current way I see it, it doesn't work for me either.
Okay, I think we've heard from everyone. I just have a question, and I'll ask it of Matthew, but maybe Matthew doesn't know. Is the St. Lawrence College gonna just pick one group, or are they gonna split all their equipment up?
So I personally don't know the answer to that question, but I'm not sure.
We don't know.
Okay. And you know, I'm one of the biggest complainers of how slow municipal politics works. But I wish in this case we had 3 or 4 months, because there's some great ideas that have just been floated out by the members of council. Whereas even an art center that starts with pottery, but then maybe expands to a lot of the things that you mentioned, you know, whether it's not just ceramics, but it's also painting, it's different types of arts that we can offer. So it's almost wish we had more time to do that. I know we have a motion on the table to direct staff. I'm gonna call the motion, but, sorry, I gotta get a mover and a seconder first. But I don't, the ladies that presented, Marilyn and Maggie, I don't want you to give up on this fight, right? Like if, depending on how it goes, I don't know, but just listening to the room, because I do think there is an avenue for that, but we're a small community we just went through the budget phase that took us 3 months and we nickel and dimed and everything. So, great questions by Mary about who's going to be in charge of this, that, and the other. And you can understand that because we've just gone through the budget process. So let's get a mover and a seconder and then see what council decides in terms of direction to staff. So can I get a mover and a seconder on the motion is, I'll read the whole motion because it's important. Council direct staff to form a working group to create a partnership with a non-profit organization to establish the Riverwalk Creative Center as a multi-use artistic creator studio venue in the town of Prescott and prepare preliminary estimates of the costs involved to repurpose the old pump house at the water treatment plant as the Riverwalk Creative Center and take custody of the pottery equipment from St. Lawrence College should the application for the equipment donation be successful. So that's the motion. Can I have a mover and a seconder? So moved by Councillor Kirkby, seconded by Councillor Young. Is there any more discussion on this? Way the motion reads. Yes.
Can we wait to see what the answer is from St. Lawrence College before we form all these working groups? Or is that part of the application?
So I'm going to just look at the clerk here, but council always has the option to defer this motion to a future meeting if they wish to see what the result of the application is. If I'm correct. Yeah.
Is that correct?
Yes, we could set a date, so if it were.
Probably by the next meeting or the meeting after, we should know, right?
Just making a motion to direct council to look into this and then we'll take a vote on it. Is that right?
No, yes, that's the motion is to look into this. But,
So if it's voted against, then we don't have to.
right, so that's what my worry is. If we vote against this, then we can't bring it back. So maybe maybe that idea to defer it, just so that we can find out if you guys are successful. Okay, Councilor McConnell, then Councilor Kirkby, then Councilor Campbell.
Well, I'm a little confused here, I guess, because I thought that part of their presentation to St. Lawrence College was that we were getting the equipment, that it was coming here and they're establishing something here. And from what I've heard around the table, I don't think the majority of us are in favor of doing that. So why would we defer something? There, if St. Lawrence College doesn't know for sure that we want it, why on earth would they give it to us?
But have you guys already put your application in?
Yeah, oh yeah.
Okay. Councilor Campbell, then Councilor Kirkby.
What is my question? Can we just direct for point number 3, take custody of the pottery equipment, should the application be successful? And once we know that we have this, then we can move. Or is that working backwards?
I think that's working backwards.
Okay.
Councilor Kirkby?
Yes, Mayor Shankar, through you, I'm kind of leaning with Councillor McConnell here. The motion in front of me has 3 stipulations to it, which we all just spoke to. And it kind of sounds like around the room, there wasn't support. The one thing for me is if the group was successful at getting the equipment and we just, as Councillor Campbell, thank you, suggested, then would the town not be on the hook for going to get that equipment and now storing it? So I know I believe Councillor Campbell's heart's in the right place here, but I think rather than deferring, the motion is in front of us. I don't think there was enough support in the room to move forward. That's my point, moving forward, even if they were successful, I don't think there's enough support in this room to move forward with this motion.
Councillor Burton?
Thank you. I think that to summarize everything is we all wish them well. We wish you well. The timeline is not feasible for us to continue and to commit. Right? So we're hoping that you guys get your pottery. And maybe in the next couple weeks, maybe you'll find a spot, you know, call the schools and call different organizations. Maybe there is a spot out there that you can just put your pottery in there until, you know, back it up a little bit until you get all your information and find a spot so you can do your Riverwalk Creative Center. I think that's what I'm understanding around the table. Everybody wishes them well and hoping for the best. And you're right, like to defer this, to have this same conversation in the next 2 weeks, we're gonna be at the same spot.
Okay. Councillor Campbell, you had your hand up.
Yeah, but this motion is not saying whether we agree or not with developing the partnership, right? Isn't it more of a research? You see what the costs are gonna be. Like, I can't vote on this either way until I know how much it's gonna cost to repair that pump house and.
It does say create a documented partnership.
Okay.
Right? Yeah.
Well, maybe that could be.
Okay, so I think I'm just gonna call the question. Okay. All those in favor? One there and two in the audience. All right, so it's defeated, but I do thank staff for all the help, and I do wish you guys all the best. Like I said, we're kind of hamstrung here by the last couple of meetings and trying to, you know, squeeze staff to figure something out in between, but like I said, I think it's something that it can develop over time, and it's just, you know, you gotta get knocked down a few times and learn how to get back up, right? But I think it will happen, but you know, for now, this motion has been. All right, thank you, everyone. 13 is resolutions. There are no resolutions and there are no bylaws today. We do have new business. 15.1 is homelessness resolution, a call to the provincial government to end homelessness in Ontario. This motion is brought forward by Councillor Young. The floor is yours, Councillor Young.
So I just wanted to say, we were talking about wheels of government moving slowly. Whenever I introduced this resolution, it was pre-budget, and it was a pre-budget appeal from AMO that municipalities support and advocate to make it known. So since our last meeting, both levels of government have announced investment in homelessness, mental health and addictions, and community paramedicine, which is all connected to the homelessness issue that we're facing. So I'm not sure if we want to go ahead and see if we want to support this resolution, if it's a little too late, or if we want it to be known that it is something that we want to stay in the forefront of government.
Matthew, you have anything on this?
It's up to council on whether they want to support it or not. That being said, I think both levels of government have identified homelessness as being a significant issue. And I think even with the initiatives that they've reported on, there's still work to do. So if council wanted to move it, that it's still something that's front and center of the municipality's mind, and something that will continue to be so as we see some of these new things come to fruition, then certainly council could support it from that perspective.
All right, so would you like us to support it?
Do you want me to read again or no?
Yeah, I think I would like.
Oh, my goodness.
Quick meeting so far.
Is there a short form? We'll just call the question then.
Okay. I did want to say one thing though.
Sure.
Mayor Shankar, sorry. One thing that popped out at me when I was looking at it, that Ontario is the only province in Canada where housing and homelessness is a shared municipal provincial responsibility. So I thought that was kind of interesting. But I just wanted to bring that up.
That's good, thank you. So who's calling the question?
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
Which has it in the other province?
No, what do they have instead of this?
You said it's the only
Yeah,
province that's
that has
shared.
municipal and
So
provincial
what,
shared.
which way are the
I
other
think the other
provinces?
ones are all provincial, if I'm correct. I'm pretty sure that's the way it read.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
So you get to ask for a mover and a seconder,
Oh.
and then call the question. Moved by Council Burton,
Seconder?
Council McConnell. All those in favor? There you go. Well done. 16 is notice of motion or no notice of motion tonight.
Excuse me.
Yes, sir.
Go back to new business for a minute because something occurred to me when I was out walking the other day that kind of ties in with this. And we don't have a long meeting so far. But
That's not a good reason.
come on, I haven't started yet. There's been a lot of talk about these tiny houses and people who are up and coming or down and going, I guess, that way. There seems to be a demand, only towns can't seem to find a spot to put them where it's acceptable. And I noticed the spot, we own chunks of property here and there, which really, it's a tough thing for us to do anything with, just because of where they are, what they're adjacent to. Nobody wants to build a $500,000 house in that particular spot, but that doesn't mean it can't be usable for something less. We had a case in my first term where the Habitat for Humanity came to us actually, and there was a little chunk of disputed land up by the tennis courts at the high school. And we agreed to donate that little disputed chunk of wooded land. And what we got out of it, we had to spend about 40 grand to finish the end of Alexander Crescent, which isn't a crescent, and that's another story. But what we got out of it was a triplex with taxes from a triplex forevermore. And the cost for us to fix that street was, I think, about 40 grand. And about 7 years we paid for, and we have taxes forevermore. Plus, we have 3 homes that are for people who are not super wealthy, but can still afford to pay a mortgage. There's a chunk of property, it's actually an unopened road allowance. It's off of Walker Street, it runs east, and it would have run to Susan Street, but it's dead-ended now because of the expansion of the wire factory, which took in the old Prescott paper products and back through there. It's in behind Kenny Beck's property. And it's between there and the warehouse for the glove factory, I believe. It's a wooded area. I believe the whole thing is owned by us. And I'm wondering if do you know what I'm talking about, Dana? Do you know that chunk?
It's actually just been purchased by a private developer from Portolano.
Okay. All right, well, it was a thought.
So much for that.
But seriously, if anybody's out wandering around and sees something like that that's undeveloped, bring it up, because it wouldn't hurt to have some of these smaller, less expensive.
Thank you.
I'm not gonna thank you.
Yeah, I know, thank you. That might be a new development there. All right, 17 is Mayor's Proclamation. So I have a proclamation in recognition of Green Shirt Day being Donor Month. So I'm just going to read it. Whereas on April 7th, 2018, a young Canadian named Logan Boulay became an organ donor in the aftermath of the tragic Humboldt Bronco bus crash, which resulted in Logan saving the lives of 6 other people and inspiring 100,000 Canadians to register as organ and tissue donors that month. And whereas registering to be an organ and tissue donor can help save the lives of nearly 1,400 people waiting for a life-saving organ transplant in Ontario, and whereas one organ and tissue donor can save up to 8 lives and improve the lives and health of up to 75 other people, and whereas the family of Logan Boulay carry on Logan's legacy by recognizing April 7th as Green Shirt Day, to raise awareness of the need for registered organ and tissue donors so that the access to life-saving and life-transforming transplants can be improved. And whereas the month of April is Be a Donor Month in Ontario, and whereas Ontario Health is asking municipalities to draw attention to the need of organ and tissue donation and encouraging Ontarians to register their consent to organ and tissue donation. Therefore, the Council of the Corporation of the Town of Prescott does hereby proclaim April as #Be a Donor Month and designate April 7th, 2023 as Green Shirt Day to inspire organ donor registration in the Town of Prescott. Dated today, 3rd of April, 2023. '18 is period for media questions. I don't think we have any media. I just want to send best wishes and get well soon to Ron Zajac, because he had major heart surgery, I think just last week. So a triple bypass. So he says, I sent him a message and he says he can't wait to come back to our meetings. I'm sure he wants to do something else. I'll take him at face value. 19 is a closed session. So I have a motion that council move into closed session at 7:20 p.m. to discuss matters pertaining to 19.1 Integrity Commissioner Training under Section 239, 3.1 of the Municipal Act for the purpose of educating or training the members with regard to Integrity Commissioner Training, and that this portion of the meeting, no member discuss or otherwise deal with any matter in a way that materially advances business or decision-making of the council, local board, or committee. And that the CAO, treasurer, clerk, deputy clerk, and Tony Fleming, integrity commissioner, remain in the room. Okay. Can I get a mover on that? Moved by Councilor Lockett, second by Councilor. Everyone?